I have here the Altra Lone Peak All-Weather shoes, and they are very well used. I wore these on the Continental Divide Trail this summer. I have been using Altra Lone Peaks for a while now. I think these were my third pair of Lone Peaks that I have bought. I really like the Lone Peaks. When you talk to hikers about these Altra shoes, especially the Lone Peaks, it's either a love or a hate relationship. It seems like these shoes either work really well for you or you hate them. And I think it just kind of depends on your foot and what kind of anatomy you have going on down there. But for me and my legs, with my feet, these shoes with their zero drop, they work really good. And what zero drop means is that there's no lift on your heel. So your heel and your toes are sitting on the same plane. They're perfectly flat, where most running shoes actually elevate your heel a little bit. They provide more cushion under your heel, but it actually gives you kind of an unnatural stance or gait when you're walking or running. For some people, I think with their feet and their legs, they need that sort of extra cushioning under their heel, but for me, it has worked really well. But what I'm going to be talking about specifically with these shoes, since these are the all-weathers, is their waterproofness. Altra doesn't say that these are waterproof. They say that they're more water resistant. They kind of designed these shoes for running and hiking in cold weather and wet conditions. And when I got these shoes, we had just finished up the desert in New Mexico, and we were heading into the San Juans in Colorado, where there's still a lot of snow, and we knew that we were going to be hiking in the snow a lot. So I thought, since I needed new shoes at the time, I might as well try these all-weathers. And hopefully, maybe they would actually help keep my feet dry. As it goes with most things that are waterproof or water resistant, they worked really well for about a week, and then after that, they were not water resistant at all. They were like any other shoe, which is kind of expected, I think. I have not found anything out there on the market that claims to be waterproof or water resistant that actually works long term. Some things work really well right away in the short term, but eventually once you start using them and breaking them down, the water is going to get in there and there's not much you can do about it. And something that I found out with these shoes, since they do have an extra liner on the inside that's supposed to keep the water out, that makes the shoes warmer, which could be good or bad. If you're hiking in cold conditions, that helps. But especially with through hiking, you're kind of in variable conditions all the time. Sometimes you're in cold conditions, sometimes you're in hot conditions. And if you have a shoe that's a little bit too warm, when you get into those hot conditions, then that can cause your foot to sweat, which can cause blisters and all kinds of other problems. So generally, when I'm through hiking, I'd rather have a shoe that is more breathable than waterproof or warm. But with that being said, I did keep these shoes, and I hiked probably at least 800, maybe 900 miles in these. So they lasted pretty long distance. Because these are a really lightweight shoe, and the materials that they have to use to make this shoe are pretty lightweight, that means that they're not the most durable materials, not like a hiking boot that you're going to find. So inevitably, a shoe like this is going to rip. And something that happened really quickly within the first 2 weeks, I think, maybe 3 weeks of using this shoe. This is kind of where the shoe flexes when I walk, and right here on the corners of where the flex happens, that started ripping open. And that happened on both shoes. Got holes there and holes here. And even though that ripping happened early on, it didn't really affect the overall performance of the shoe, other than the water resistance of it. It didn't really bother me. I was still able to hike in these shoes for another couple months. Eventually, the material on the top here, it became so weak that it became kind of susceptible to more tears. And near the end of the lifespan with these shoes, I remember walking under a stick, and the stick kind of got caught on the top of the shoe here, and just one step I ripped across the whole top of the shoe, and then these shoes didn't last much longer. Other than the material here that tears on this flexion point, The rest of the shoe held up really well. As you can see, 800 or 900 miles of hiking on this tread. It's still in pretty good shape. And I still felt like I had pretty good grip on uneven and loose and rocky surfaces. Something that I've had happen on my other Lone Peaks is that this rubber piece here comes unglued and it kind of comes peeled off. It seems like they've basically fixed that problem at this point. It was just starting to happen at the tip of this shoe. Other things that I've had happen on other Lone Peak models is that the kind of heel cup right here, this tends to wear down. But that held up really well on these shoes. There's basically no wear on those areas, so that's pretty good. And overall, the kind of like structural rigidity and support of this shoe is still in pretty good shape. It was mostly the tearing of the fabric near the toe. That was kind of like the end of the lifespan for this shoe for me. So overall, I do still think that this is a very good shoe. They don't advertise this to be waterproof. They just say that it's an all-weather shoe. So it's kind of their clever wording to say that it'll help a little bit in wet conditions, but don't expect it to be waterproof. If you're hiking in the rain, if you're hiking through puddles and stuff like that, your foot's going to get wet. There's really nothing you can do about it. So if you know that you like the Lone Peaks, but you're kind of torn between getting the regular Lone Peaks or the all-weathers, I would say in most cases it's probably not worth spending the extra money. For your average thru hiker, these aren't going to make much of a difference. Your foot's going to get wet whether you have these or whether you have the regular Lone Peaks. And it might actually be worse to get a shoe like this because of the extra waterproofing membranes that they put in here. It makes the shoe a little bit less breathable, a little bit warmer, and it's going to take a little bit longer in order to dry out. There are only very certain scenarios where it's going to be worth it. But if you're a thru hiker, if you're somebody who is going to be taking the shoe in a lot of different conditions, big variety of terrain, and big variety of weather conditions too, I would probably recommend just getting a regular breathable shoe that's going to dry faster. Taking wet shoes off at night means that you get to put them back on in the morning. It's always a great way to start the day. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this video.